Hi there lovely and welcome to the Irresistible Instagram Feeds course. My name is Michaela and today I'm going to be taking you through this free audio training so that you can learn how to turn your Instagram feed into an irresistible Instagram feed that converts followers into customers. Now before we get started, I just want to quickly introduce myself in case you haven't met me before or you've only just found me on Instagram. So my name is Michaela Paul and I'm the founder of Social Stylings, and what I do is I help female entrepreneurs in the fashion and beauty industries to create beautiful Instagram feeds that convert followers into customers. I'm an Instagram marketing specialist based in Australia specifically, and I have a huge love of all things pink in case you haven't noticed that already. Now in this course I'm going to be taking you through the 3 key things that you need to know in order to create an irresistible Instagram feed. And those things are creating a compelling Instagram bio that converts, picking the perfect imagery to wow your customers, and writing interesting, not irresistible, captions with ease. Now to kick things off, we're going to be going through your Instagram bio. So if you don't have a pen and paper with you already, I would highly recommend grabbing one out, simply because I'm all about activities when I'm teaching, so make sure you have that with you. But anyway, so your Instagram bio is essentially a digital sales assistant. I like to explain it like that because that's essentially what it is. If your sales assistants aren't up to date with the latest offers or your new arrivals, they're not going to be able to effectively help you to sell more of your products to new customers that come in the store. It's just the same with your Instagram bio. If it isn't up to date, it isn't going to help you with selling. Because imagine if you had a link that was sending them to a sales page that expired 2 weeks ago. That would send a really bad first impression to a new customer, so make sure that your Instagram bio is always up to date. Now, to kick things off, we're actually going to be going through and figuring out how you can rework your Instagram bio so it's a bit better for you and can actually help you to start converting those followers into customers. So the first thing I want you to think about is what language appeals to your ideal customer. Now, if you have an ideal customer profile, this would be the perfect time to grab that out, simply because you really are going to need it so that you can pick the right language to use in your bio. So, based on your ideal customer's preferences, what do you think would appeal most to them? Do you think they would like to seek some humor or clarity? Serious or a light-hearted tone? Simplistic or industry-specific language? Have a little think and decide what kind of words you're going to be using to build your Instagram bio. Now the second thing to consider with your Instagram bio is what layout would your ideal customers likely prefer? Do you think that they would like to see 3 simple clear sentences, 4 or 5 dot points with keywords, or 1 smart and snappy sentence? Have a little think. Consider your ideal customer's personality type, whether they're quite easily agitated or if they're kind of in a rush all the time, or if they're kind of cruisy and relaxed. Think about that. Okay, now I want you to take a moment to craft ideas for your own perfect Instagram bio. And if you have any struggles, don't worry, I am going to show you a few examples in a moment. Okay, let's go through some Instagram bio examples. So here are 3 Instagram bios that I want you to have a look at just to gain some inspiration from. So the first and the third one are quite similar. We've got 1 full sentence and then 1 sentence that relates to the bio link. And then the one in the middle is actually a keyword list. So if you go onto your phone and type in Ruby Slippers Styling on Instagram, you should be able to see that their Instagram bio is nicely laid out in clear dot points. So these Instagram bios all feature a sentence at the end of the bio that relates to the bio link. Now I highly recommend having that whichever bio style that you choose to use, simply because it allows people to know exactly what's going to happen if they click on that link. Okay, now we're going to move on to your imagery. So what I like to say is, if your Instagram feed looks like a mishmash of random colors and bold text, you're going to scare away potential customers. So some common Instagram imagery faux pas are, the first being using a different filter each time you post. So this one's very easy to do, I know, but you need to make sure that whatever you're posting on Instagram, that they all look similar and cohesive. Because if you're using lots of random filters, it's immediately going to look messy. The second thing is overloading your graphics with text. So if you're guilty of creating your own branded quotes and putting a whole big paragraph of text on there, you definitely need to stop doing that. I would highly recommend sticking to just one simple sentence if you're going to use graphics, because otherwise it can quickly get overloaded. The third thing to keep in mind is mixing too many colours on your feed. So it's all well and good if you have 6 or 7 brand colours, but with Instagram I'd recommend you sticking to 3 or 4 and making sure to use those when you're styling your Instagram feed so that it all looks cohesive. Now the thing that you need to consider with your Instagram imagery is what images will best communicate who you are, what you do, and what you have to offer. So let's take these two as an example. So an interior designer and a fashion stylist. If I was to find an interior designer on Instagram, I would definitely expect to see some beautiful rooms, some interior decorations up close, some mood boards, and some swatches, and maybe a few other things here and there. And with a fashion stylist, I would certainly expect to see some outfit photos, some accessory details, some wardrobe organization, some texture details, maybe even some photos of stores. Think about what kind of images you can use to portray what it is you are selling or promoting on your Instagram feed. Now, on the note of photography and imagery, you need to make sure that you are clear about where you're actually going to get all of this content from. Because I think one thing that businesses often overlook when they join Instagram is how much content you actually need to have an Instagram account. You're going to have a new image to post every single day at minimum. So figuring out where you're going to get your photos from is very important. So the first option obviously is taking your own photos. So if you're already great at taking your own photos and you have heaps of time to do that, feel free to continue on that journey. But I know for people like me who are a bit time poor, we like to buy stock photography. Now this is great if you're a service-based business, not so much if you're product-based, because I know you can't necessarily put your products in there unless of course there's lots of white space and you can hire someone to do Photoshop and play around there. Otherwise, if you are product-based, what you could do is hire a photographer to come in and do a studio shoot, or an actual product stylist for Instagram. I know there's a few of those out there. So have a little think about where you can get those photos from. One thing I would like to note is that joining a stock library is such a good option if you know that you're going to need new stock photos all the time and you don't want to be spending $50 each time you need new images. So for me, what I really like to use with stock libraries, there's a few I recommend. I personally use Wonderfell and Fempreneur stock. So those two are definitely ones that I would recommend you checking out. There's some other stock photographers that I absolutely love, and I often mention them on my Instagram feed. So if you haven't seen that before, try and scroll through my Instagram feed. I'm sure you're going to find it somewhere. Otherwise, I might add that to my website somewhere. So keep an eye out. Anyway, another thing that a lot of people come to me about is, what about these Instagram stories? What do I actually post there, and what is right and what is wrong? So what I would recommend is, even though Instagram stories are necessarily a bit less serious than your normal Instagram posting and they're not as strict, I would still recommend sticking to your color palette and imagery style. So if you don't usually share blue on your normal Instagram feed, I wouldn't share a nice big blue photo on your Instagram story because it'll probably confuse people. Consider using textured or coloured backgrounds to overlay text on the stories as well. So if you like writing a lot, or you have a text update that you want to put out there, I would recommend getting some background or just some plain coloured background images. What you could do is go on Canva and just create one that's the exact same size as your phone screen, and then send that to yourself, add it to your camera roll, then upload it to Instagram stories. That's a little life hack for you. Okay, now let's move on to the last section of this course, and that is your captions. So what I like to say is if your captions aren't enticing, you aren't going to be able to make your Instagram feed irresistible. With your captions, you need to start putting the social back in social media. The way I like to explain your captions are that when you go into a store, a brick and mortar store, actually going outside and shopping, I know it's terrifying, but going outside and going shopping, you walk into a new store and the attendant or the owner or someone like that will probably come up to you and go, "Hey, how are you? How are you going? Can I help you?" And those conversations are what you miss out on if you run an online store or if you're selling online through Instagram. You don't get to have those relationship building conversations with your customers. You don't get to warm them up like that to you. So it's very important that with your content on Instagram and your captions especially, that you're building up that relationship and you're encouraging people to leave comments so that you can start having those meaningful conversations. So when you're thinking of creating conversational content like that to get to know your customers better and to warm them up to you, I would recommend keeping an eye on trending topics, so whether that's on the news or in pop culture, remembering what month it is, very, very important. I've seen a few business owners get caught out by this a few times going, "Oh no, I totally forgot this holiday is coming up this month," which you definitely should be aware of because who knows, you could do a promotion or a special offer for that or even an Instagram giveaway. Also, see what your demographic are interested in. If you know that people in that certain age range are quite fond of a particular TV show or a particular singer, you need to keep that in mind so that you can use it as conversational content. Now, just quickly, I'm going to take you through the 4 key types of content. So this is something I talk a lot more about in my Content Queen Masterclass, but I'll just take you through it now. So 4 key types of content. So the first one is educational. Now this is one that I highly recommend lots of service-based businesses use, especially when they're first starting out on Instagram. Just helps you to show that you really know what you're talking about. And it also works for product-based businesses if you're just starting out but you know you have a very superior quality product. Educate people on why it's quality. And when you're educating, make sure to keep it short and sweet. Don't make it a full-on case study or whatever. Try and keep things short and sweet between one paragraph and break it up into different pieces using the return button on Instagram. The second type of content is motivational. Now, this one we're all pretty fond of. Motivational quotes are all over Instagram. However, some other ways you can motivate your customers would be things like testimonials or happy customer photos. All that kind of stuff motivates your customers to see what life would be like if they had your product or service in their life. And the third type is conversational. Now, we've already touched on this, so it's mainly just about starting up those conversations with people and encouraging comments. And the fourth type of content is promotional. Now, this is where a lot of us get quite caught up. We think, okay, I'm gonna sell stuff on Instagram, so that means I have to post about it every single day. But I think it's the complete opposite actually, and I'm going to show you why. So if you're in Australia, like me, you probably know what store I'm talking about. But if you're not in Australia, just think of a department store, because I'm sure there's one that does this in your country. So we all know that department store that has sales every single weekend, without fail. And they talk about it on TV ads and online as if it's something that's brand new and never happens ever, but they actually do them every single weekend. And if you're anything like me, it makes you never want to buy anything full price from them because it might just go on sale tomorrow. So if you think about that in terms of your business, if you are constantly promoting a sale or you've discounted one of your offers or something like that, and you promote it like maybe twice a week or 3 times a week, people will start getting used to seeing you discount yourself and they won't be willing to pay full price. So even if you're doing it out of good intentions, you're going, hey, but we've got a great sale on and it's mid-season sale and it's lasting for 2 months, you still need to make sure that you're quite reserved about it. Don't talk about it all the time. Otherwise, people are definitely going to take advantage of that and start going, oh, why should I buy it full price? I'll just wait for it to go on sale. So definitely keep that in mind, whether you're product or service based. Okay, now let's talk about good versus bad captions. So just quickly, a lot of people do come to me saying, okay, Michaela, I've done all this stuff, but I can't tell whether my captions are working or not. I don't know whether they're good enough. And what I want you to keep in mind is with good captions, they should absolutely be telling a story. So each individual post on Instagram should be like a mini blog post. It's a little insight into your business and who you are and what you do. So it should always have a beginning, middle, and an end in your caption. So even if you're just sharing a simple quote in your caption, make sure that there's something there that could be read between the lines. Maybe it relates to the image. Another thing to consider is using brand language. So I see a lot of business owners, they've written all their captions for the week, and then they go and have a look at their competitors to see what they're doing, and then they start changing their captions to match their competitors. And what happens there is they start losing a bit of their brand essence and their brand voice because they're copying someone else. What I would recommend there is just making sure that you are using certain words and phrases that you repeat a lot on your other forms of copy. So on your website, in your blog posts, in your product descriptions. Have a look for what words that you use quite a lot and make sure to use those in your Instagram captions. Another thing to consider is being authentic. So keep in mind your brand values, certain causes that your brand believes in, and put those through your captions just to add a bit more personality to your Instagram feed. What I would also recommend is if you are a startup or if you're a small label or something like that, and you've got a fantastic founder with a great story about how they came up with the business or how they found the product, have a little bit of that story and share that in some Instagram captions here and there. So don't post about it like the exact same thing for a week, but just throw it in there from time to time, just reintroducing yourself to your new followers, and I'm sure that you're going to start building really strong connections with your followers. And I think that's the most important thing on Instagram, is having those key quality relationships with your followers. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me on this free online training. I hope you enjoyed it. Please come on over to Instagram at social.stylings and let me know what you thought. And I hope to see you the next time that I have a little webinar